Hey everyone, this is Caitlin. So we are going to talk about behavior therapy. I tried to include a lot of pictures throughout the slideshow because I myself am a visual learner and it just really helps me kind of take the concept and understand it a little bit more. So let's start. Okay, so let's talk about the definition of behavior therapy. There really isn't like a true definition of behavior therapy, so I just kind of took the concepts and made it into one definition for it. This theory is based on the idea that learning is developed on the idea that all behaviors are acquired through some kind of conditioning. So everything that we talk about is going to be developed from conditioning. It's just not the same kind of conditioning. The origin of behavior therapy, it is developed in several different places. It was developed in the United States, South Africa, and Great Britain. One of the major differences of behavior therapy from everything else is that this theory allowed researchers to investigate observable behavior in a scientific and systematic behavior while others did not. Okay, so let's dive into the founders of behavior theory. There are four main contributors to the behavior theory. The first one being Ivan Pavlov. He was born in Russia in 1849. He was known for developing classical conditioning. He was also known for his unusual energy that he referred to as his instinct for research. Pavlov was best known for his classical conditioning experiment using dogs. Pavlov predicted the dogs would salivate in response to the food placed in front of them. However, he noticed that the dogs would salivate hearing the footsteps of his assistant who was bringing the dogs the food as well. This led to the finding that any object the dog was conditioned into the association of food would trigger the same response as food itself. Next, we're going to talk about John Watson. Watson was born in South Carolina in 1878. He believed that psychology should primarily be based on scientific observable behavior. He is widely known for his unethical and controversial research experiment of the conditioning process known as Little Albert, which I agree with as being unethical. John and his assistant Rosalie conditioned a small child to fear a white rabbit by repeatedly pairing the two along with loud, frightening, clanging noises. They are able to see that this child's fear could then also be generalized to other white furry objects, which would cause the child to have the same fear as he did with the white rat. Next, we'll talk about the founder, B.F. Skinner, which is personally the founder that I knew the most about before reading this theory. B.F. Skinner was born in 1904 in a small town in Pennsylvania. Skinner was influenced by Watson's philosophy of psychology, which was known as behaviorism. Behaviorism rejected any psychological explanation that was based on mental states such as beliefs, desires, or memories. Skinner believed and argued that the goal of science of psychology was to predict and control an organism's behavior from its current stimuli and reinforcement. He is widely known for the development of operant conditioning. Skinner was an inventor. In his operant conditioning experiment, he created this Skinner box, which included at least one lever that the animal can manipulate, which in this case was the rat. When the lever is pressed, food or some kind of reinforcement was dispensed. The rat then was conditioned using positive reinforcement of pressing the lever, which then resulted in food. Okay, so let's discuss the last founder of behavior therapy, which is Albert Bandura, which is personally, I think, the most interesting out of all of them. Albert was born in 1925 in Canada. Bandura agrees with the theories of classical conditioning as well as operant conditioning. However, he contributed two additional important ideas. The first being mediating processes occur between the stimuli and the responses. The second being that behavior is learned from the environment through the process of observational learning. He believed that children observe the people around them behaving in various ways. It's similar to the concept I think most of us have heard of before, monkey see, monkey do. In Bandura's famous Bobo doll experiment, he wanted to see if social behaviors such as aggression can be simply acquired by observation and intimidation. In the experiment, children were individually shown a male or female model, such as an adult or parent, behaving aggressively towards a clown doll known as Bobo. The adults in the video attacked the clown with either a hammer or threw the doll or yelled at it. The children were then taken to a test room filled with non-aggressive toys such as plastic farm animals and aggressive toys such as the Bobo doll shown in the video. These children showed aggression towards the doll as they were shown in the video. In today's society, people bring this theory into question when they think about kids and being exposed to violent media and video games. I'd be curious to know what everyone's thought of this is. I personally think that everyone, again, experiences things differently, as this theory points out. However, I think some people can watch a violent TV show or play a violent video game and start to exhibit those same behaviors. Okay, so now we're going to dive into the 4 areas of development, which are pictured below. We'll talk about classical conditioning, operant conditioning, social cognitive theory, and then cognitive behavior theory. Okay, so classical conditioning and operant conditioning are the 2 most widely known concepts of the 4 areas of development. So classical conditioning is a learning process that occurs when any 2 stimuli are repeatedly paired together. A response is first elicited by the second stimulus, is eventually elicited by the first stimulus alone. For example, the dog salivating like we discussed previously. Operant conditioning is a learning process through which the strength of a behavior is modified by either reinforcement or punishment. I think it's important to point out that both reinforcement or punishment can be either negative or positive. I thought it was important to note the difference between these 2 concepts as well as the picture shows. Classical conditioning shows an involuntary response in the stimuli, while operant conditioning shows a voluntary behavior in the consequence. Now let's talk about social cognitive theory. And I wanted to provide another visual because I feel like this visual really kind of took me a little bit more in depth to the theory. But social cognitive theory believes that the environmental events on behavior are mainly determined by the cognitive processes of the particular individual that is undergoing the event. So this kind of relates back to point of view. This concept understood that not everybody sees events within the same perspective. Okay, so let's dive in a little bit to cognitive behavior therapy. It's a concept that we will learn about a little bit more next week, but CBT represents the mainstream of contemporary behavioral theory now. As we know, it's extremely relevant because, as I said, we are going to learn about it next week, and I am super excited for the presentation that we are all going to see too. However, cognitive behavior therapy operates on the belief that what people truly believe influences how they act and feel. Okay, so cognitive behavior therapy and the school setting. In this presentation, I really wanted to focus on how behavior therapy can be utilized in different settings with different clients, since that really has been where most of our hesitations towards certain theories have stemmed from. I basically wanted to take you on a date with this theory. So, since CBT is an approach that is research-based, this actually makes it really easy to implement in the school setting. These techniques in the school setting or even therapy setting for mental health professionals can help the client, in this case the child, to make the connection between their thoughts, feelings, and actions, and then help them develop a plan on how to change one of these components. I included some images of CBT problem-solving maps for school counselors. Okay, so I thought it would be beneficial to kind of give a rundown of what behavior therapy would look like within a session, just in case any of you guys picked this as your theory. I picked 3 main points to discuss what it would be like. So within behavior therapy, treatment goals are set in concrete objective terms to make replication of their inventions possible. So with this being a behavior-based therapy plan, you want these behaviors to be achievable for your client. And then we're going to focus on the client's current problems. We're going to evaluate them and what specific factors are influencing those behaviors and problems. A client's history can be a contributing factor to their current behaviors, but knowing this will not lead to change. So within this theory, it's different than some of the other theories that we have learned. Awareness does not fix the problem. Awareness only leads you to knowing that you need to fix the problem, but you have to actually fix the behavior in order to fix the problem. The last thing that I wanted to talk about is that clients are expected to take an active role in their therapy. They must be the ones to bring on change. For example, a client may have homework that they need to take home and complete. This just really relates back to the point that the client is the only one that can actually change their own behaviors. So, what is behavior therapy used for? Since behavior therapy seeks to identify and help change any potential self-destructive or unhealthy behaviors, this therapy can really be used for several different clients. So people who commonly seek behavioral therapy usually have depression, anxiety, panic disorders, or anger issues. However, this can be helped to treat conditions and disorders such as eating disorders, PTSD, bipolar disorder, ADHD, phobias, OCD, self-harm, and substance abuse. So really this behavior therapy can help any of your clients and be used towards anyone, and this type of therapy can benefit both adult clients as well as your children clients. Okay, so I wanted to give you guys some examples of therapeutic techniques. Even if this theory isn't for you, some of these techniques could be. So I still feel like it's extremely important to research these techniques and kind of figure out which one you would want to use yourself. This was just a couple examples. There are so many techniques within this theory that you can use. Okay, so I wanted to talk about one of my favorite concepts this chapter, which is systematic desensitization, which is a treatment used for clients with phobias. During these treatments, the patient is exposed progressively to more anxiety-provoking stimuli. While they're doing this, each step, they are taught relaxation techniques in each different step. So for example, if you're scared of, let's say, spiders, because I am, you're going to start off with a spider being, let's say, 10 feet away. So then we're going to teach you relaxation techniques at 10 feet away. And then we're going to provoke you a little bit more, and we're going to move that spider to 5 feet away. And then we're going to teach you relaxation techniques for 5 feet away. And then we're going to provoke you even more, and we're going to move that spider to 2 feet away. And then we're going to teach you relaxation techniques for 2 feet away. And then we're finally going to bring that spider right to your hand. And then while that spider is in your hand, we're going to teach you relaxation techniques for that step as well. That way your phobia can decrease a little bit each step. Okay, so social skills training was another concept that I really enjoyed reading about, and it's actually one of the only techniques that I have seen in person. Social skills training is a type of behavioral therapy that's used to improve social skills in people with mental disorders or developmental disabilities. SST can actually be utilized by not only counselors but teachers as well. SST begins with an assessment of your client's specific skill deficits and impairments. There are 5 main techniques that SST usually consists of. Instruction is the educational piece of SST that involves a modeling of appropriate social behavior. Behavior role play is also used to practice new skills during therapy in the stimulated situation that therapy provides. Corrective feedback is also used to help improve those social skills during the practice. Positive reinforcement is used to reward improvements in those social skills. And then the last technique that SST uses frequently is weekly homework assignments to provide the chance for the clients to practice those new social skills outside of the therapy session to help them get more comfortable with those social skills. Certain skill sets that are developed in these training sessions are assertiveness, nonverbal communication, and verbal communication. SST can be utilized with clients that have autism, social anxiety disorder, and even schizophrenia. I decided to use this picture that depicts the social skills from the perspective of the autistic person because autism is super close and dear to my heart. Not only was communication disorders and autism my minor for my undergrad, I actually have 2 younger cousins that both have autism, and I have seen them both go through SSST, and I have seen how much it helps them to be able to look at a nonverbal communication setting and be able to tell how that person is feeling or what they're thinking when normally they could not. And they still see the world in a very different perspective, but SST really helps them to kind of understand the social settings a little bit more. I wanted to talk about what was going on in the world during the development of behavior therapy last. Since we kind of know a little bit more about the theory, I personally thought that we could understand the concept of what was going on in the world a little bit better, and how this was relevant at the time in the 1950s. During the 1950s and during the development of behavior therapy, the Holocaust and World War II were happening. During this time, people were looking for answers. People in this time period wanted to know why and how humans could be displaying behaviors such as the neo-Nazis. People were wondering how someone that was human, too, could be murdering millions of other humans. So these things that were occurring during this time really helped send the focus of psychology to behavior and what could be causing these behaviors to occur. Alright, and to finish up this presentation, I wanted to give you all an activity to try. I saw this 5 fun mindfulness activities for children while I was doing some of my research, and I kind of thought it would be something small and simple that everyone could do. So I want you to pick out one of these activities activities and explain why you picked that one out of the 5 activities and what the experience was like for you. And anytime it says your child in any of the activities, I want you to replace that with yourself. So I picked activity 5, which is the tense and release muscle relaxation. I thought it really allowed me to be more aware of my body's behaviors and then how to relax them, which is really the goal for the technique, progressive muscle relaxation, within this theory as well.